Shields up, Iron Breakers. Murakan here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Monster Hunter World and whether or not you should be playing it. So as you guys no doubt know because you are watching this channel, I'm super excited about Monster Hunter World. I've been a Monster Hunter fan for quite some time now, and I can't wait for the 26th of January. The game is going to come out, and I'm going to play the crap out of it. I'm going to stream the crap out of it. I'm going to make tons of videos about it, and it's going to be good times. But I have noticed that Monster Hunter World has reached untold levels of hype, more so than any other previous Monster Hunter game before it in the West. And that means that there's a lot of new people coming into the scene, and you guys maybe played a little bit of the beta, you fought a couple of the monsters, and you guys are wondering, so what is the actual final game going to be about? Or maybe even you've been playing the beta and you think, whoa, dude, this beta is really hard. Like, what's the deal with this? How am I supposed to learn all of this stuff? Well, in this video, hopefully I will be able to answer all of your questions. Starting with, for those of you that think the beta was too hard, quit now, you're screwed. No, I'm just joking. As a matter of fact, one of the main reasons why the beta probably feels so hard is because of the time limits. As you guys know, I believe that the three first quests in the beta, which is the Great Jagras, the Baroth, and the Anjanath, they have limits of 20 minutes. And then you have the fourth, which is the final quest that was added only in this final beta for the Nergigante, and that has a time limit of 15 minutes. You guys are going to be like, oh my god, that's just like so, it's so exaggerated. There's so little time to actually hunt these beasts. You barely even get to appreciate the scenery. You barely even get to look at all the little minute details that have been placed on every nook and cranny in these gorgeous looking maps, right? That's probably something a lot of people are thinking about, and that is actually the main reason why those limits are there. It's because they don't want you to be wasting time looking at every little detail that is most likely still going to be somewhat improved in the final version of the game. This is, for all intents and purposes, a demo, and that's why those time restrictions are there. They want you to be able to fight and engage with the monsters, but they don't necessarily care that much whether or not you finish the hunts. This is just to give you a taste of what you can expect in the final game. So something that you can expect in the final game is that the timers should be a lot larger. I mean, there hasn't really been an official confirmation yet, but pretty much every single other Monster Hunter game before this one, the time limits are 50 minutes. So if you're concerned about, oh my god, am I only gonna have like 15 minutes to hunt this big monster in the game? It's like, that shouldn't really be a problem. Most hunts will be 50 minutes. Sometimes you get the occasional hunt which will be a little bit shorter because it's a special boss fight or something, and maybe it will be like 30 minutes. I don't think I've seen lower than 30 minutes on any Monster Hunter game. And even then, trust me, time is never really the issue. It's like, if you're coming up close on the time limit, most likely you have died a bunch of times and you're gonna die one more time and fail. You probably want to look at optimizing your gear and stuff like that. And that's another thing. So maybe you're fighting some of these monsters and you're feeling like, oh my god, I really don't feel like I'm doing that well. In the final version of the game, there will be more options on your loadout. You will be able to equip yourself in different ways. You will be able to potentially even bring more hunting tools onto your hunt. And trust me, the game itself should actually be quite a bit easier than the beta, even though most Monster Hunter veterans will be like, dude, beta was easy. Because in all actuality it was. It's like, once you start to understand how the actual game works, and once you have like an actual progression where you will be fighting a certain monster, and then you will be fighting the next monster above it, and the next monster above it, you will be getting much better at playing the game than just going into the beta and trying to kill Anjanath, which could actually be really challenging for someone who is just starting to play Monster Hunter World or a game of Monster Hunter nature. Now, something that you guys may be wondering, okay, so Rakan, so tell me a little bit more about the genre of Monster Hunter. That's actually something that I really like to talk about, because I like to say that Monster Hunter created a genre in and of itself, which is, to me, it's the Monster Hunter genre, which then a lot of games came around and kind of like copied some of the things around it. Games like God Eater, Freedom Wars, and in a lot of aspects also Soul Sacrifice. There's a ton of Monster Hunter clones out there, Tukiden, and so on and so forth. There's a ton of games out there that actually copied a lot of aspects of the Monster Hunter formula, and as far as I'm aware, Monster Hunter was actually the first one to come up with this particular game style. Some people will tell you Monster Hunter is an RPG. I tend to disagree a little bit, and the main thing is Monster Hunter is a looting game. So you will be hunting monsters, you will be killing those monsters, and when you kill them, you'll be able to carve bits and pieces out of them. And beyond just the carves, you will also get additional quest rewards that will give you multiple parts of those monsters. Like say you hunt a dragon, you're going to be getting scales, or maybe winged membranes, or talons, or claws, and beaks, maybe even, depending on the type of monster that you're fighting. Spikes. You'll be able to get all of these different kinds of materials, and then you will use those materials to craft armor pieces, which is why you will see multiple armor pieces whenever you are in the beta. And your loadout screen, you'll be able to select from different armor pieces. And you will notice that you will see at least there is a Jagras set, which looks like kind of yellowy and scaly and stuff, which is a set that is essentially made from parts of the Great Jagras. And then you have the Anjanath set, which looks more red, and it's got a couple of black fur on it and stuff. Which again resembles the Anjanath. And that is something that you can expect throughout the game. Whenever you hunt a specific monster and you actually get its parts, you'll be able to craft a set of armor as well as a weapon which will distinctly mimic the appearance of that monster. After that, you will then, after you've crafted that gear, you will then hunt bigger monsters and stronger monsters and so on and so forth. And there's a little bit of a meta game to Monster Hunter. So some people will really focus on the meta and they'll be like, okay, so this monster has a lot of fire attacks, so I'm going to build this set that's got a lot of fire resistance. Whereas there are other people that will be like, this monster has a lot of fire attacks, but this set looks really good. I don't care about the fire attacks. I'm going all for looks. Yes, Fashion Hunter is most definitely a thing. You have people coming up with all kinds of crazy looking combinations just for really customizing their character. And it's a big aspect of the social game in Monster Hunter, is trying to make your character look as cool as possible, while at the same time still being able to fight monsters and stuff like that. But ultimately, there is no best armor in Monster Hunter. It's always going to be the best armor for a specific situation. Like I said, fire attacks. Or maybe instead of fire attacks, even though the monster has fire attacks, you might want to focus more on you dealing more damage with a certain weapon. Like maybe you will want a set that increases ballistic damage or something like that. And those sets will be available. Or a set that prioritizes ice damage in order to negate the fire resilience of the other monster. So there's a ton of aspects of customization that you will have to your character, but ultimately the game's loop is about you hunting monsters, getting their parts, crafting gear, and then hunting bigger monsters, and keep going that way until you eventually get tired of the game, essentially, because the game doesn't really end. I mean, there is like a final quest and stuff, but you will always want to continue fighting, and they're always, at least in previous iterations, they were always adding crazy DLC quests, which would be like harder and harder from the stuff that you've done before. Like they've already announced that they're going to be adding free DLC with the Devil Joe, as well as a couple of more things that will come in that particular DLC pack, which is one of the things that it's always been really cool about Monster Hunter games, is that you can get a lot of time out of them. Like, someone tells you, oh, I've played, say for instance, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate for 200 hours. I guess I scratched the surface a little bit. Now, some of you guys are wondering, oh, okay, but that means there's going to be a lot of repetition. And yes, there is quite a bit, at least I'm not going to just say here, oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of repetition in Monster Hunter World. I haven't played the final game. But historically, in Monster Hunter games, there is usually a lot of repetition, because it's like you're hunting a specific monster and you want to craft the armor set of that monster. You're not going to be able to get all the materials by hunting that monster once, sometimes not even twice, 3, 4, 5 times, because there will be certain parts of that monster that are going to be a little bit more rare, and they might require you to deal with the monster in different ways. Like for instance, certain sets will require pieces of a tail, which will require you to focus on that monster tail until you can chop it. Other pieces will require you to break the monster's face. Yes, I did say break the monster's face. Certain monsters you can't break their face. Like for instance with the Nergigante, you can break both of the horns that he's got on top of his head. Other monsters, you might be able to like break their legs. And by breaking their legs, I mean damaging their legs to the point where, you know, they're not going to be as effective, they're not going to deal as much damage. And you know that there's a two-pronged effect. So the way in which you damage a monster, the way in which you engage a monster, depending on whether or not you know of its weak spots, you will be able to be much more efficient at defeating that monster. So there is a bit of a quest for efficiency when it comes to Monster Hunter, where it's like once you've killed a monster once, you know, the next time that you're going to be fighting him, you're like, okay, so now I know his moveset, so I know how to deal with him. And then the second time you'll start noticing, oh, when I hit him here, he really complains. So this is probably his weak spot. And it's very organic the way you deal with the monsters. You're going to start reading what they're doing, reading their movesets, reading their reactions. And that's why a lot of people are constantly wondering, hey, where's the health bar for this boss monster that I'm fighting? There is no health bar. As a matter of fact, in the previous Monster Hunters, there weren't even damage numbers, and I wish they would have kept it like that. I would rather read like the impact markers. And I know some people are like, whoa, Rurikon, you're going just like off the deep end here. But no, reading the impact markers is a lot cooler because you don't really know just how effective something is until you start, you know, looking at the time that it took you to do a certain quest. But I guess people in the West are they're going to react better to this. These guys are used to seeing damage numbers in games of this type. It's not really a big deal, but ultimately I would have preferred to continue with the damage markers thing, because the way it used to work is like you see the animation from impact in the monster, and by seeing how that animation looked like, you could usually tell, okay, this is damaging him really good, or this is not. Now you'll just look at the numbers and you're like, well, that really hurt. I guess this is the way to go, you know? Which makes it a little bit more accessible. I'm not completely against it. It's completely whatever to me, really. I just prefer it the other way, but whatever way works, let's put it like that. So there's a lot of variety in the types of monsters that you'll hunt. There's a lot of quests about optimization and fashion. And the other cool thing about Monster Hunter is that whenever you pick up a new weapon, it's like a whole new game. Like a completely, because there's, I don't even, is it 14 weapons? I don't know by head right now how many weapons it is, but there's like a bunch of different weapons that you will have available to you in Monster Hunter. And whenever you pick up a new one, you're going to be like, wow, this is like, it's completely different. The movesets are completely different. The type of things that you can do with that specific weapon are completely different. And the cool thing is that they've added a bunch of new mechanics to it, even if you are a Monster Hunter veteran. The weapons now, they all have like their own new kind of thing that you can do with them, and it's just very satisfying and particularly visually satisfying whenever you really lay it into a monster and you really just see all of these beautiful animations that they've crafted, all of these new types of attacks that you can do. It's just super satisfying to play, to the point where even yesterday I discovered a couple of new things about the hammer and the gun lance as well. Because, you know, even as someone who has played quite a bit of Monster Hunter, I'm still discovering new combos that you can do now in Monster Hunter World. So there's quite a bit of innovation there as well. Now, the previous games, they used to have the maps segregated in zones and loading stuff. And maybe if you're watching footage from a previous Monster Hunter game, you're like, wow, this whole zoning thing and how things are divided really sucks. That doesn't happen in Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter World is just like one big map for each hunt, and you'll be able to roam that entire map. It's going to be real cool. Some people, some Monster Hunter veterans have been saying, oh my god, the scout flies. It's like, why would you need scout flies? Why can't you just like chase the monster down yourself? It's because of the complexity of some of these maps. And if you've tried hunting down Rathalos in the Ancient Forest, you will know how complex that particular hunt can get, particularly on a 20-minute time limit. It is a bit of a pain in the ass because essentially the monster flies all over the place. And if you don't have the scout flies to kind of guide you through it, you're kind of screwed. Now, an interesting thing here is that the beta might lead you to think, so every quest is basically around fighting a boss or something of that nature. Are there smaller monsters in Monster Hunter? There are smaller monsters, and again, I'm going to go with previous iterations of the game. I can't really guarantee you guys that these quests are going to be present in Monster Hunter World, but in previous iterations we've had like certain slaying quests where you would actually have to go out and just kill a bunch of smaller monsters. These are usually earlier in the game, and then as you progress through the game you get more and more just like boss fight type quests. And then there's other side quests that you're going to be getting, like gathering quests. You guys are like, why would I want a gathering quest? Well, that is because not everything in Monster Hunter is going to be purchasable at a shop, like a typical RPG. You know, in your RPGs, you're like, well, I need some potions, going to go to the shop, going to buy some potions. In Monster Hunter, usually what you do is, oh, I need some potions. You go on a gathering quest, and you collect herbs and blue mushrooms, and you combine those into a potion. then you collect honey, and you add that into the potion, it becomes a mega potion. So there's this whole crafting system behind it, to the point where if you're someone who is using something like a gun or a bow gun, you're actually crafting the ammo to put in that weapon, which is one of the reasons why I personally never tend to follow the bow gun and heavy bow gun. Even though you guys probably have seen me in the betas playing around with a lot of guns, it's because I didn't have to craft the ammo that is in those guns. Because like just the thought of me firing something that I crafted, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this, because if I fail this quest, there go all those materials. So it is quite a bit of an investment. And as a matter of fact, if you're someone who is new to Monster Hunter, I'm not sure that guns are going to be something that I'm going to advise people to get into. But ultimately, I also don't want to be like, oh, guns are so hard. They're actually the simplest they've ever been, and they're the best they've ever been. But that's just to tell you guys that there are gathering quests so that you can go collect stuff like certain minerals. You can actually go mine them. You can go fish, because you can use the fish to do stuff. You can go get like insects so that you can then create flash bombs and all these other things. Basically, there is quite a bit of an aspect to the crafting, and in the fact that you will be crafting your consumables, your potions, all this stuff to kind of like feed back into those hard quests and stuff like that. But later down the line, usually with most Monster Hunters, not later, but actually early into the game, they will present some kind of system to you where you will be able to get certain materials by having like cats farm them out for you, and they will just like deliver stuff to you on a regular basis. Just a matter of you picking, oh, I want some herbs for some potions, I want some mushrooms, I want some honey, I want some of this, some of that, and the cats will usually go get. You would have like farms in Monster Hunter where you would be able to get this kind of stuff without necessarily going on gathering quests. But you would still want to go on certain gathering quests, particularly like when you're starting into crafting some of the later sets of armor, which require some rare ores and stuff. You will have to go into dangerous gathering zones where there may be monsters out there and stuff like that. So you will be on a mission to gather stuff while at the same time trying to avoid dying to a monster, which is it's pretty cool. And then there are other kinds of side quests which are really frustrating. I'm not sure if they're going to put those in, but in a way, in a nostalgic way, I hope they do, which are the egg quests. Oh yeah, Monster Hunter veterans will know what I'm talking about. So these will be quests where you will have to go to like a dragon's nest and then pick up an egg, which will be very frail, and you'll have to be super careful, and then you will have to carry that egg through the map all the way into the home base. And those are actually some interesting quests. I just hope they don't lean too heavily into those, because sometimes they can be a little bit frustrating. But the egg quests is kind of like an essential aspect of the Monster Hunter experience. So yeah. Now on another topic, some of you guys might be like, okay, so we're working on what's the story going to be like? And the story in Monster Hunter games is usually not really its strong suit. Even though I do have to say, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate had a pretty cool story. I mean, it wasn't the best thing ever, but at least it had a narrative to it. You would be going through all the different villages in it. It was probably some of the biggest innovation we've seen before Monster Hunter World was announced. And it was pretty cool. And Monster Hunter World is actually looking to change that, and they're adding all of these cinematic cutscenes into the hunts and stuff. So Monster Hunter World is looking to rein it in even more with the story, from what I can tell. Although I do have to be honest, I've kind of steered a little bit clear of trailers. I've seen a little bit of it here and there, but I steered clear of it because I want to be, completely spoiler-free when I experience that stuff for the first time. But what I can tell you about Capcom's storytelling when it comes to co-op games is that, again, I got to bring up that Lost Planet 2. Lost Planet 2 had an awesome story, in my opinion, and it was an awesome game. It was a really good co-op game. And if they pull off something in the lines of what you had in Lost Planet 2 in Monster Hunter World, I'm gonna be completely on board, dude. I love that game. And I know a lot of people still gonna give me crap, oh, we're not great. It's like, whatever the fuck, dude. I love Lost Planet 2, and I don't care what anybody else has to say about it. However, having said that, sure, there's going to be a single player campaign. People have they've already said it's going to be like 40 to 50 hours, which even if they're exaggerating, you will at the very least get like 30 hours of a single player campaign. which is quite a bit. But to top it off, it's like, you guys need to understand, you're going to be getting literally hundreds of hours out of this game. And even though it's got this cool single player story, the best aspect of this is when you're actually hunting online. When you actually, once you're done with the campaign and you're continuing to progress along the path of the story of the game, not the story, but just along the path of like the next evolutionary step, because then you might have like deviant type of monsters and different variants in monsters. Like in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, you had the Raytheon, then you had the pink Raytheon, and then you have, I think in other games you had like the golden Raytheon. So there's like different variations of monsters, and they will introduce different movesets. It's just not, oh, it's a color swap. No. There's more to it than that. And in the case of this Monster Hunter, there should also be different behaviors even to the monsters themselves because of the way that they are programming this stuff. So you're gonna have a lot of your fun online as well. Sure, the single player is fine, and I would not mind playing like 100+ hours of Monster Hunter single player, but online is going to be where you're going to be having a lot of fun. And an interesting thing that has actually changed from previous Monster Hunter games is the fact that in previous Monster Hunter games you had the solo bit was like, okay, so this is your single player campaign, and then you had the multiplayer bit, which is like, okay, here's your multiplayer stuff. And the two were completely separate. In this one, there's going to be one campaign, and you'll be able to play it single player or multiplayer. You can repeat the single player hunts as much as you like, so that if you want to go farm materials for an early monster or something like that, you can go back. Or if you want to go help out a friend on a specific quest, you can do that too. So that's kind of like how the game works. And now, whether or not you should be playing it is basically whether or not you agree to most of the things that I've said here, whether or not you think that that sounds like the game for you, because there's more to Monster Hunter than just hunting monsters. There's a lot of really cool aspects that some people might like and some people might not like. But ultimately, my personal advice is you should play it. If you enjoyed the beta, you should most definitely play it. But if you didn't like the beta, like if you didn't like the gameplay or something like that, I'm not sure if the final game is going to change your mind. It's going to be much better, mind you, but it's also going to have the other things I told you guys about, like the repetition and the hunting for certain rare parts, which can sometimes be frustrating. At least it was in previous Monster Hunter games. Like anyone who's been looking for, say, a Rathalos plate or something like that will know the pain that it is. You're trying to like get this thing to like craft this Rathalos belt. I think it was the belt. The plate was for the belt. I don't remember. And it's just like you keep killing Rathalos and you break everything. You break his face, you break his legs, you break his wings, you chop his tail, and then at the end you still don't get the plate. It's very frustrating, but at the same time, it does create these timeless stories, particularly if you're hunting with friends. Because that's the whole thing about it. Like I remember lots of hunts that I've done with this friend of mine, and we're always like, trying to one-up each other. He's like, oh, I'm going to do this thing with the clusters, and then we're going to kill this monster. And then I'm like, oh, now I'm going to craft this insect glaive. And then, so it's almost like we're alternating the carry. So for a while, we would farm something for my friend to have a better bow gun. And then when he had his better bow gun, we were able to defeat a bigger monster, which allowed me to get like this really overpowered weapon. And so it's got this really cool synergy that you can get together with your friends and plan things out. And again, just don't worry about the timers. They're most likely not going to be a problem in the final game. Thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.